My name is Madison Carter, and I was 38 years old when I finally realized that sometimes the people who underestimate you the most are the same people who taught you how to survive. I grew up in a small town in Montana where my father, Richard Carter, was known as a successful businessman, and my older brother, Ethan Carter, was known as the future of the family. Ethan was 41, a former college baseball player who later joined my father's construction company. Everyone expected him to take over the business one day. My mother, Linda Carter, spent years making sure everyone saw us as the perfect family. From the outside, we looked successful, respected, and united. Inside the house, however, things were very different. Ethan was always praised for every achievement while I was often overlooked no matter how hard I worked. If I earned good grades, it was expected. If Ethan achieved something similar, it was celebrated for weeks. Over time, I stopped trying to compete because I knew the result would always be the same. The only person who treated me differently was my grandfather, Samuel Carter. He owned a beautiful lakeside property that had been in our family for decades. Every summer he would take me fishing, hiking, and walking along the shoreline. While others focused on success and money, Grandpa Samuel focused on character. He often told me that a person's true value is revealed when nobody is watching. At the time, I thought they were just simple life lessons. Years later, I realized they were preparing me for something much bigger. When I was 21, my parents informed me that they could no longer support my education because Ethan needed financial help for a business opportunity. I was heartbroken, but arguing would not change their decision. With only a few $1,000s in savings, I moved to Seattle and started over. I rented a tiny apartment, worked long hours, and studied real estate contracts at night. While many people were enjoying their 20s, I spent mine building a career from the ground up. The process was difficult, but every challenge taught me something valuable. Slowly, I earned promotions, gained experience, and built a reputation as someone clients could trust. By the time I was in my mid-30s, I owned part of a successful commercial real estate company. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family grew more distant. They rarely called unless they needed something. Family gatherings usually revolved around Ethan's achievements, new business plans, and future goals. I attended less frequently each year. Then one day I received an invitation to my father's retirement celebration. Hundreds of guests were expected to attend, including business owners, community leaders, friends, and relatives. I almost declined the invitation. But something convinced me to go. During the event, my father stood on stage giving a speech about his career and legacy. He thanked employees, friends, and family members. Then he looked directly at me and made a joke at my expense. Several people laughed while others looked uncomfortable. Instead of arguing, I calmly raised my glass, congratulated him on his retirement, and quietly walked out. What nobody in that room knew was that a much bigger surprise was waiting just around the corner. A few days later, I learned that my father planned to sell the family lake property to a large development company for several $1,000,000. He had already made financial commitments based on the expected money. My brother had also arranged major business expansion plans using the future sale proceeds as support. Something about the situation felt wrong. Because of my experience in real estate, I decided to review the public records myself. What I discovered changed everything. Years earlier, my grandfather had legally structured ownership of the property so that it would eventually become mine. The documents had been properly recorded and filed. Everything was legal, clear, and enforceable. My father either never understood the paperwork or assumed I would simply sign whatever document was placed in front of me. As the closing date approached, pressure started coming from every direction. Family members called, asking me to cooperate. My brother insisted that the paperwork was only a formality. My mother claimed everyone wanted peace. Yet nobody apologized for years of unfair treatment. Nobody acknowledged the sacrifices I had made. They only wanted my signature. When the closing meeting finally arrived, everyone entered the room expecting a routine transaction. The title officer reviewed the ownership records and clearly stated that I was the sole legal owner of the property. The room became completely silent. My father looked shocked. My brother became angry. The developer immediately realized the sale could not proceed without my approval. For the first time in my life, the truth was being spoken in a room where nobody could interrupt it. I remained calm and explained that I would not sell the land. Instead, I intended to preserve it and honor my grandfather's wishes. The meeting ended shortly afterward. The sale collapsed, business plans changed, and many people blamed me for the consequences. However, I knew the reality was much simpler. I had not taken anything from anyone. I had simply refused to give away something that legally belonged to me. Months later, I returned to the lake alone. The water was calm, the trees were tall, and the old cabin still stood proudly near the shoreline. As I walked the trails my grandfather once showed me, I realized that success is not about proving people wrong. It is about building a life that remains meaningful even when nobody is applauding. That day I finally understood that self-respect and kindness can exist together. You can forgive people without surrendering your dignity. You can remain respectful while maintaining strong boundaries. Most importantly, you can move forward without carrying anger in your heart. Sometimes the greatest victory is not revenge. Sometimes it is simply becoming the person you were always capable of being.